Most dads don't lose their custody battle in the courtroom. They lose it months before they even walk through those doors. 2 messages landed in my inbox this week. Both were asking the same question. They didn't know it. The first was from a dad who had just been served a protection order at his offices. He hasn't seen his son in 3 months. The second was from a guy who had read something I'd written and wanted to print it out and put it on the wall of his rental home. His rental home. The place where he is going to start rebuilding from. Now, without knowing it, both of these guys were asking me the same question. Where do I even start? This video is the answer. If you're in it right now, and that voice in your head is so loud and simultaneously your gut is just dropping, that is not weakness. That is what this process does to your body. So here's where you start. 1. Understand what is going on in your body. 2. Assess exactly where you are. 3. Record everything. Everything. 4. Start communicating like a man who is going to win. And 5. You need to know your numbers. You cannot think strategically when your body is in a threat response. When our body perceives a threat, it goes into fight or flight mode. The presence of cortisol and adrenaline in your body shuts down your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is what is responsible for rational thought and problem solving. When you are under a stressful situation, which a high conflict divorce is every day, you cannot process a court document when your prefrontal cortex is switched off. Every poor decision I made in the 3 years of my divorce was made from that stress state. So that is where we start. There was a period of time where I was responding to messages at midnight. I had a couple of beers, and every message I sent felt justified. But reading those messages back now doesn't sound like a justified dad. It sounds like a person who isn't able to regulate. The evidence I was producing was not of a present father. It was of a reactive man. The point is this. Emotional regulation comes before anything you do, before communication, before everything. You need to figure out what works for you. Be that meditation, exercise, breath work, or just taking a walk around the block. The point is not that you perform calmly, rather that you are able to give the divorce the cognitive attention that it deserves. And you cannot do that while your nervous system is flooded. Now that you're thinking clearly, we can start going through the documentation, establishing exactly where you are, legally speaking. Most men are making decisions from where they think they are, or what they've been told the court case says, or what it said 6 months ago, before things changed. The difference between what is actually said in the court order and what is really going on in real life is where your whole case lies. It took me months before I went through the court documentation. I thought I knew what was going on, but I was wrong. What the documentation actually said was one thing, and what I thought was going on was something else. I hadn't sat down and mapped that difference yet. And because of that, I did not know where I stood or what I was actually fighting for. So what I need you to do is go pull every piece of documentation you have, every court order, every access arrangement, and go through it word for word, mapping out the difference between what that says and what is actually happening. Write that down. That document becomes your starting point. Not what you're feeling, not what you think is going on, that document. Most men don't document because it feels like you're being paranoid. Because as soon as you start documenting, you have to accept that things have gone way further than you expected them to. But that's not paranoia. That's a lack of professionalism. And it results in an absence of evidence when you need that evidence the most. The court is not there listening to what you're telling them about yourself. The court is painting a picture over time with the hundreds of little data points that they get given. Every handover, every message, every sick day, every school run, every time you messaged under pressure. A dad that walks into that courtroom with a clear, detailed record of all of those data points is telling a story before he even opens his mouth. I wasn't telling that story because I had no evidence. The point is you have to record everything, every handover, every message, every school run, every sick day you attended to, every time you were denied access and what you did about it. You are building a record of the type of dad that you are. And that record in a courtroom is worth more than anything else. The worst thing you can actually do is so bad it has its own acronym. JADE. Justify, argue, defend, explain. And most men do it without even realizing. Every accusation gets an explanation. Every provocation gets a response. And where you feel like you're defending yourself, what it actually reads like in a courtroom or in a report or in a message thread is a man that cannot separate his emotional state from his communication. And these threads are evidence. Make sure they are the right type. The Grey Rock method isn't about silence or weakness. It's about deliberately denying fuel to a fire that cannot burn without it. A man that responds to provocation with short, factual, emotionless messages is a man that is communicating, just not in the way that the opposition would want him to. So write out every message as if it's going to be read out in court, because it likely will. Short, factual, non-emotional, about the kids. No jade, no emotion. The Grey Rock method isn't about suppressing yourself, but rather choosing what evidence you want to use to build your case in every single interaction. Lastly, financial anxiety and emotional volatility are correlated. When you don't know what's going on in your life financially, your nervous system comes up with a worst case scenario. That scenario ends up affecting your emotional state. Your emotional state affects the decisions that you make, and those decisions end up costing you. I avoided looking at my finances for months. I thought that the anxiety of not knowing would be less than the anxiety of knowing. It wasn't. After I took time to put all my income and expenses all onto one page, what came out was bad, but it was manageable. In my head, there was this catastrophic disaster that was waiting to happen. And all of my decision making was from that catastrophic vantage point. So get out a pen, open up that spreadsheet. I'll contact me and I'll send you my spreadsheet and write everything down. Everything. Income, expenses, legal fees, expected maintenance. Put it all down. Real numbers. Not your imagined worst case. Financial clarity isn't going to solve your situation, but it is going to remove one of those points of volatility that are driving the decisions you are making. To the man who got served at work, I know that feeling. I've been living in it for 3 years. To the man in the rental house, you're not in a rut. You are going to be sprinting very soon. This is where you start. Now, for those of you that have stayed to the end, I've built a Grey Rock AI response prompt. All you have to do is copy it, paste it into whatever AI chat you prefer, enter the message that you've received, and it will generate a Grey Rock response message for you. Calm, factual, diffusing. The type of message you want in your record. The link is in the description. You're welcome.